Potter, can we have roll call, please?
Mr. Loudermilk.
Here.
Ms. Alsop.
Here.
Ms. Weger.
Here.
Mr. Thacker.
Here.
Ms. Thies.
Here.
Mr. Norris.
Here.
Mr. Thompson. All present but Mr. Thompson.
Yes, we're not sure he was going to be here or not tonight, but we'll go ahead and get started. For the first thing is if we have any communication from elected officials, other officials, or agencies of the county that would like to speak at this time. Okay. Oh, there he is.
Here I am.
I wasn't sure if he was going to be here or not, so.
Good evening, President Thacker, members of the council. Mark Klinkenbeard, Vigo County Commissioner. I handed out what that is, that handout. What I wanted to do tonight was give you an update on a couple projects. And this handout that I gave you is basically a timeline of E911 facility completion.
Yes.
So today, I went up to the facility, met with Jeff Fox, Ricky Hammond, and the subcontractors. I'm pleased to say that things are actually ahead of schedule. I think I just took a few pictures, and Joey's got them up here of all the materials that are already in. All the equipment is here. If it's not here, it will be here by the end of October. And here's the good news. Without any unforeseen problems coming up, we will be up and running December 15th.
Awesome.
We couldn't have done this without you guys, but specifically without Jeff Fox. I tell you what, he has done an amazing job on this project. He's put in countless hours. He's up there, 3 or 4 times a week working with the subs and just doing a great job. Also with our Ricky Hammonds and our maintenance department, they've also done some of the work up there with the storage areas. So things are really coming along, and just want to thank you guys for helping push this along. As I said, I think last time, I think this is an example of government working well together and getting good things done for the people. So that was it on that. You see it, like I say, the timeline of the things that are happening, just moving right along. We're going to have to get with THPD to use their backup space for about probably 10 days in late November while we're transitioning all the equipment to the new 911 facility. Some of the pictures here, the office spaces like this, they are getting the final paint, they'll be getting the flooring, and they'll be done here within probably a couple weeks. So then this is the main area, which is the dispatch center. All the mechanical rough ends are being done right now. They'll be pulling a lot of wires and things like that. But it will be done and ready to go sometime in early November. So things are moving along there, and I just wanted to update you guys on that. A couple other things.
Before we move on there,
Sure.
I'd like to say I do appreciate you recognizing that we are working well together on that. I think that's really important. I don't think there was any posturing on this whatsoever. I think between the county council and the county commissioners, we worked seamlessly on this to try to address a problem. And I appreciate your leadership.
Yeah, I thank you, and I would agree. I remember that day we came in and we were putting together that resolution at the last minute, but it made a difference. That's why we're ahead of schedule. So thank you guys for all that. Updates on the maintenance facility. We are making the final updates on the plan, reviewing the contract this week, and hope to let out bids by the end of October with groundbreaking in November and completion in the spring. That's the storage, maintenance, and morgue facility. And one more quick update. Chris has done a good job of keeping everybody updated on the Mill Dam situation. The temporary road is in at the park, and the demolition is scheduled for 8 o'clock Monday morning. We are closing Rosedale Road from 8 to 12 to let people watch, take pictures, that kind of thing. I'm sure there'll be a lot of traffic around there, as there has been the last few days. We are expecting the final permit this week. Is that correct? Friday. Then once we get that, we will move ahead on Monday. Just a couple other things to note. Playground equipment has been installed, and the final design on the parking lot has been approved, and we should get that going in early November once the demolition is complete. So hopefully by the end of this year, that park's going to look a whole lot different. And for those of you that don't know, Larry Mullen, who is he does so much for the county as far as trash removal. If you follow him on Society of Trash Baggers, he picks up trash nonstop. But he takes pride in the North End, and he actually took it upon himself to pay a wood carver to come out and take one of the big stumps and carved an angel in that with otters on it. It's already getting a lot of attention. It's pretty cool. So it's neat to see people take pride and not, and do something like that on their own. So just wanted to mention that. If you got any questions about updates, anything else that I've brought up, I'd be happy to answer them.
I want to go ahead and address that since I live so close to it. I appreciate you guys being very proactive with the communication, the road signs. I live, half mile, I think, from it. Definitely have seen more traffic. I think a lot of people coming by, but giving people the opportunity to be there and doing some of the changes. I look forward to the final project, and there were a couple of things I definitely, were kind of pushing on, and hopefully we'll get done with signage and the historical part of it. But it's been, it's been a long road, and I think having the communication, having the talks is helpful. And again, I appreciate the safety and the planning that you guys have put into it for that day.
Thank you.
And the road going through is actually pretty good. Like it didn't make a mess or anything, so it's looking good.
Yeah, definitely not something that we sought out. Just one of those things we had to deal with, and making the best out of a bad situation. Thank you, guys.
Got shut off. Sorry about that. So, number one, additional appropriation 2023-67 is the Riley Fire Protection District capital outlay. Number two will be additional appropriation 2023-60, the courts, physician fees, testing, and service agreements. Number three, additional appropriation 2023-61, coroner, transportation of corpse. Number four, additional appropriation 2023-62, the commissioner's service agreements, electricity, burial of soldiers, and telephone. Number five, additional appropriation 2023-63, ARP grant Children's Museum. Number six, additional appropriation 2023-64, ARPA grant fund Swopes Museum. Number seven, additional appropriation 2023-65, ARPA grant United Way to support United Way programming. Number eight, additional appropriation 2023-66, ARPA grant Historical Society exterior wall rehabilitation. So the next item we have is item number 5, reports of committees. So I'd been out of town for a couple of trips, and came in today and sat in with the budget committee. And they have been working very hard, and I wanted to give Vicki an opportunity as chairman of the budget committee to kind of get us up to date what we have going on with that committee.
Well, it's been an interesting budget year, a big year actually, and we're not finished yet. We ordinarily we would have presented the budget this evening, but it's not finished yet. We've all become real good friends. We've spent enough time together, and no fights have broken out so far. And we have another meeting coming up, and I believe we will have it finished on Monday. God, I hope so. And we, the Baker Tilly report was actually what slowed us down. That took up last month's meeting, and so we kind of started anew from that point. It took a chunk of money out of our bag of money, and so we're trying to make the rest of the funds go as far as they possibly can. I hope everybody didn't get their hopes up a lot, but we're doing the best job we can. We've got a really good spirit of cooperation from the people on the council. Various members drop in from time to time, kind of give us the Heimlich maneuver and talk us back off the ledge so we keep going. The auditor's office has been really going beyond the call of duty to help us have good ideas to stretch the money as far as we can. You know, Karen and Judy and especially Cheryl. She's a genius. Don't tell her I said so. It'll go right to her head. But I think we're going to come up with some ideas that will keep everybody going for another year. So that's about all I can tell you right now. We don't have it finished, but I think we will have and present it at the next meeting. And I'm not totally crazy yet, but just about that, this close.
And with that being said, the next meeting, we've had an issue come up, and we're going to need to push our October 10th meeting to October 17th. It will be advertised according to DLGF in accordance with their section on there. Let me see, I get the right number. To IC 36-2-3-7. So we will publish that it's going to be on October the 17th. Now, because October 17th, it'll have to be at City Hall because there'll be early voting going on here. So we won't have our normal meeting of October the 10th here or at City Hall, but October 17th, we will reconvene at that meeting, and at that time, we will have the first reading of the budget that Vicki has talked about. And I just think it was really important now that we talk about that because we're not hiding anything, but we've been working on this very diligently. So, and we will have that ready for us. I sat in on their 4-hour meeting today on budgeting to try to catch up where we're at on it, and we made some strides, but we're not quite there on the salary portion of it is what we're trying to finish up. Any questions about or reports on the other committees at this time? If not, a resolution for ordinance other than appropriations. So the ordinance readings to the appropriations. Number one, additional appropriation 2023-2067, Riley Fire Protection District capital outlay. And I believe we had a request from Mr. Fisher on that, if I look at that. Have anybody here from the Riley Fire Protection District on the capital outlay? Should be on our page 5. Is it 4?
Page 4.
Oh, yeah, it is on 4. Oh, I'm sorry. So,
What's the deal?
we have a letter here, notice the taxpayers for additional appropriation. They're requesting $21,000, but I don't. Cheryl wasn't it? But on page 5 it says Jeffrey Fisher, treasurer. Do you not have any?
Safety equipment.
Cindy Hart, their accountant, sent in the request. And so Karen told them when the meeting would be, because she handles all of their stuff. So she told them when the meeting would be, so I'm not sure. But it looks like to me, the actual fire district board is asking for the request so they can reimburse the actual fire department. That's kind of how it works. For safety equipment that they had purchased.
Yeah. That was
So
what was
it kind of looks like the fire district's trying to reimburse the fire department.
in the
Because
cumulative
that's kind
fund.
of how it works, out of their cum fund outlay.
What's the council's pleasure this time, since we don't have a speaker on this? You want to take action on this tonight, or you want to table it till
Wait
somebody's
till
here?
next week. Wait till next.
All right, I guess,
Well-
right, we don't take any action tonight, I'm sorry, so.
Correct, and-
I'm
and
sorry.
we
It doesn't-
will-
They don't have to be here, but maybe they'll be here in 2 weeks
We'll get
on
in
the
touch with,
17th. Okay,
Jeff Fisher and, Cindy Hart, and make sure someone's here on the 17th.
very good, thank you. So the next item is the additional, number 2 is additional appropriation 2023-6 is the courts. The courts are asking for, on page 7, page of ours, it is page 6, and is sent by Judge Newton for, says here for physician fees, printing, supplement to the community corrections, drug testing, and service agreements. So we have a request now.
And I'm Judge Lewis here on behalf of Judge Newton, who couldn't be here tonight. Some of it's pretty self-explanatory. The physician fees, we have a lot of sanity and competency evaluations, and that we need additional fees for that. The printing is for jury forms, envelopes for all the different courts. The $14,000 for the supplement to community corrections is a reimbursement for drug screens that they've done for us that we've court ordered. And then the drug testing, that's to the additional drug testing we'd order throughout the end of the year. And then $2,000 is for the copiers that we have in all the courtrooms, the service agreements.
It goes on to say here, in the past, we've been able to transfer funds from other line items to cover some of our shortages, but in the 23 budget cuts, we no longer have any extra funds, so that's why you haven't
That's
been
why
able
we're
to
asking,
transfer.
yes.
Okay. Any other questions for Judge Lewis here? I think
All right.
that's good.
All
Thank you,
right,
sir.
thank you.
Okay, moving right along, we are now to number 3, additional appropriation 2023-61. The coroner has a request for fees for transportation of corpse. I saw Donna earlier.
She's
I
here.
see, Donna, you got anything you want to say? Or Curtis?
Well, thank you for allowing us to say something this evening. We have had such a year so far this year, and the transportation that Curtis has done so far this year, he has removed 201, he has done 201 removals so far this year. I have already did one transfer this year that I transferred out of toxicology into transportation, but we have used that.
Okay.
At present, I believe we have around $7,000 in transportation, and we have 3 months to go. So we were requesting additional money in that transportation account for $25,000. If we don't use that, of course, it reverts back to the general fund. But the way things have gone so far, it may be pretty close to that.
You don't see any slowdown in the dying?
I don't.
Okay.
I
That's
don't.
know if you had any
Last-
for that or not.
I think it was last Sunday, we had 6
Oh, man.
cases.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so,
we don't need an incident like they had on Teotihuacan, do we?
Oh,
5 at
no.
one time.
Got one on I-70 as I speak.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Hopefully it's not fatality. So, yes, anybody have any questions for the coroner's office, for Donna, or for Curtis?
I just want to make sure because we're, in the midst of budgeting and stuff, is this just because it's an unusual year? Or did we not allocate enough last year? Do you know?
it's just an unusual year. I mean,
Hopefully.
we have $140,000 in that account, and that's a very good number.
Uh-huh.
But I don't believe, this is Dr. Meyer's 3rd year as
Uh-huh.
coroner. We've not had to come back and ask for.
I know, that's what I
a-
said. I remember
additional
that.
That's what I was hoping is that with our
Funds.
being able to have our storage, hopefully that'll cut down
And
some
that-
of this
yes,
because we've
yes.
had to move them multiple
Yeah.
times because of that, right, Curtis?
Well, last year, it's happened twice in my time doing this, is I was able enough to handle the last month because we was out of money. And then when we start the year out, we $7,000 behind the hole from the start.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I understand, like I said, I'm a type of person that, I'm gonna do my job. I dare not ask for nothing that I don't have coming. Good.
No, and I appreciate what you all are doing. It's an important job, and I just want to make sure that if this was an unusual year or not, just that we handle it like funding wise in
Yeah,
the future.
it's been a very huge year this year. Lots of, actually lots of overdoses
that's what I was
and,
afraid of.
and accidents. You know,
Okay.
vehicle accidents, yeah. But normally, you know, if we get through November and then we've got December, and then, you know, like Curtis said, you know, we have had to go into the next year, you know, to, pay him. And we've also had to do that before, like in autopsy, but it's not been as prevalent as it has been in years past. My face was in here like every other council
Okay,
call.
Okay, good. Okay,
Yeah.
that's just what I want to make sure of.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, I appreciate
Mm-hmm.
it.
Any other questions? All right, thank you for your time. So next one we would have would be the number 4, additional appropriation 2023-62, the commissioners, service agreements, electricity, burial, soldiers, and telephone. Mr. Schweitzer.
Yep, so good morning, or good afternoon, been a long day. Members of the council. Last year when we presented our budget for 2023, we were asked to trim the fat on some of those budgets, so we did, and we were told to come back to the council and ask for additional appropriations if we needed to, so we are for that. We made it to October, but we need some additional money in service agreements, electricity, burial of soldiers, and telephone. We have $1,173 left in telephone, $504 left in service agreements, we have $88,000 left in electricity, and $1,400 left in burial of soldiers. Particularly, burial of soldiers is very important for us as commissioners because we had 15 of those last month, and that's $100 a pop. So any veteran that needs to be buried and needs some type of assistance, we offer them $100 from the commissioner's office to help with that burial. We only have $1,400 left in that account, so we're asking for an additional $2,000 to get us through the end of the year. Additionally, electricity, you know, we got to pay for all the buildings. We're definitely going to be short this year. We're asking for an additional $20,000. Those electric bills average anywhere from $36,000 to $45,000 a month, depending on the usage that we pay monthly. In service agreements, we spend approximately $3,500 a month, and you know, we've only got $504 left in there. So we're just wanting to cover until to the end of the year. Whatever we don't use, of course, will go back into the general fund.
So telephone, that's quite the other ones aren't too bad, but 60,000, that's a lot off of the telephone. What's going on there?
Joey, do you want to help me explain that one a little bit better?
What do you guys do there?
It's a lot, but I also want to say that we've already transferred out of service agreements, or we've already transferred from those same line items into service agreements, $10,300
Service agreement.
and $5,000 in the telephone. But Joe, you want to help me on the phones?
I'm not entirely sure on everything, but I believe that there's a monthly amount that they pay to Frontier, the long-distance company, and Gibson Teldata. And then there's a yearly licensing fee that they pay Gibson Teldata. That's $10,000 twice a year, and I don't know that was accounted for in the budget.
It was not.
It does, yeah.
That's 20.
It does kind of come sporadically, but, and then, you know, I know that the Frontier bills run about $8,000 a month, so there would be October, November, and December. And the long-distance bills are about $300. So, all
I
of
can
those months,
provide you,
yeah.
Council President Thacker, with our ledger, because I brought that up with me today. It's up to date as of 9/5.
It's,
Ms. Hyla?
Joey, it's Frontier, Quest, Joink, and Frontier, Quest, Joink, and Gibson Teldata.
And then Joink is for new jail internet connections that I don't believe were accounted for either.
Big one.
Oh,
There
but
was-
that got lumped into telephone instead of data.
There was some confusion last year, I think, with how many circuits there are, what agreements pay for what. So I just don't think it was all accounted for.
Any other questions for the Commissioner Schweitzer? If you guys ask him questions now, he gets a chance to be interviewed later, so.
Here
make
we
sure you
go.
ask him a question.
TV time. Hit me up.
Okay. I only do that because I like him. Okay. So the next one is additional appropriations 2023-63 ARPA grant, Children's Museum. Susan.
So you guys are going to hear from Susan Turner, maybe some others tonight with the Children's Museum. We met last week, Susan, I think it was, to talk about this, and she's going to present you with a pretty cool plan for 8th Street. Right. So Susan, it's all yours.
Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
Thank you so much for the invitation to come speak with you tonight. Who's controlling that? Can I control this? Okay, all right, cool. My name is Susan Turner, and I have the privilege of being the executive director of the Terre Haute Children's Museum. I've been there almost 5 years, which seems really hard to believe. Some days I feel like I've been there for 5 months, and sometimes I feel like I've been there for 500 years, because COVID was right in the middle of that. So we've lived a lot of life together in our time. Tonight, I want to talk to you a little bit about the future of the museum and how I hope we're able to partner for the children and the families in our community. So I'm going to give you a little history lesson first and talk to you about the mission of the Children's Museum. Our mission is to enrich our children's lives through play. We really believe in the power of play and the exploration of science, technology, engineering, and math. The impact of COVID cannot be understated when we talk about where the museum has come, where it is now, and where it's going. When we decided as an organization that we were going to shut the doors because it was the right thing to do and because the governor told us we had to do it, there's that little thing. I don't think anybody on my team or on our board really understood how that would impact the museum as a whole. We are an earned revenue organization. We eat what we kill, right? So we are not supported by a tax entity. We receive money through the door. So admissions, memberships, birthday party rentals, facility rentals, fundraisers, and grant writing. That is how we pay our bills. And at that time, it cost about $40,000 a month to run the museum. The month after we closed for COVID, we brought in $800. I sat at my dining room table daily and cried, thinking about how are we going to make it, and how am I going to be the executive director that closes the Terre Haute Children's Museum permanently? Like, that is not a good thing to wake up to every day. But we have been so fortunate over the last few years to get out and remind the community how important the Children's Museum is to this community. We have been very successful in grant writing. We have been super successful in fundraising. And I'm happy to tell you that the Children's Museum is in the best financial position it has ever been in today. And a lot of the people in this room are to thank for that. I just want to give you a small snapshot of our numbers from 2019 to 2022, and I think you have this definitely in front of you, maybe in packets. I'm not really sure how this all works. But you can see that we still haven't recovered from COVID with our museum visits. Every year we notch up a little bit, but we are still not back to 2019 numbers. And I will tell you that this is an industry standard. People are not returning to museums in ways that they had before. They are interacting with us in different ways. They're having their birthday parties with us. They are coming to us for field trips. They're using our science store to buy gifts for their children. Part of the reason why our museum visits are down is possibly because of the age of the museum. We try very hard to make sure that the exhibits are up and running and that we have new things for children to see. But exhibits are expensive. They're anywhere between $75,000 and $300,000 for one exhibit. We have 20 plus exhibits. So coming out of COVID, we did a year of planning. We were very intentional in how we were spending our time. We put together a strategic plan for the organization so that we had a roadmap of where we were and where we wanted to go over the next 5 to 7 years. We put together a master facility plan, and we also created a rebrand of the logo and redid our website. If you haven't been to our website, I encourage you to go check it out. It's thchildrensmuseum.com. I'm not going to read this to you, but these are our goals for our strategic plan. Basically, we're focusing on, providing that vibrant experience within the museum walls, being a great partner in our community, having a diverse revenue model, and attracting excellent staff and volunteers like every other business in this community. When we started on our master facility plan, I naively thought we were going to update a few exhibits. And then we invited everyone from the community to the table to have a conversation about what the museum could look like in the future. And boy, do they have ideas. So what became a renovation of a few spaces became a complete renovation of the museum. The museum where it is right now is in its 13th year of operation. We have had over 700,000 individuals come through the doors of the Terre Haute Children's Museum. It is definitely showing its age. And so they took the opportunity to tell us what they wanted to see in the museum. So this is a really quick preview of what we're going to do at the museum in the coming years. We are going to renovate the first floor. Actually, we're renovating the entire museum from top to bottom. The first floor will have a nature theme. In this area, children will have an opportunity to climb and play and swing and crawl and really work on those gross and fine motor skills. The second floor will be a Healthy Haute exhibit. So there will be a replica of our town where you come in and you can go to a wellness center, you can go to the grocery store, you could go to the vet clinic, and then we will also have a freestanding space that could change out every 6 to 9 months. So, if there's an election going on, we could have a voting booth. As we're moving into back to school time, it could be a library. So that each time you come to the museum, there's a different experience for you. This is our brand new water table that we're hoping to install. It is very reflective of the Wabash River and the Wabashiki. As we were going through this planning process, I made it very clear that it was important that children understood the valuable natural resource that they have right in their own backyard, and they were able to understand how it impacts their everyday life. On the third floor, we're really trying to scale up who we're attracting. So this is really for those 10, 11, 12-year-olds, very heavy on robots, manufacturing, and space. How do I go back here? So then, at one point in time during COVID, I was just spitballing ideas at the Chamber of Commerce, and I said, do you know what would be really cool and what would be really helpful to the Children's Museum? Is if we had room to grow. We are landlocked. We are part of the Candlewood Suites Hotel. The top floor of the Children's Museum is a hotel. I'm here to tell you, if you're gonna build a children's museum again, don't put a hotel over it. Because when there's a leak there's a leak in the museum. I said, wouldn't it be great if we could shut down 8th Street and turn that into a play space for kids? Every children's museum I've been to has an outdoor playscape, and wouldn't it be awesome if we had one too? It would have been so helpful to have this kind of a space during COVID, because we have beautiful parks in this community, and we were able to use those parks in order to do programming. But when the governor told me to shut the doors, he meant shut the doors and don't let anybody in. Well, I still had a full staff of people to keep busy, and I still had a bunch of kids to educate. So we had to find other places to do that. So we did it in city and county parks. Wouldn't it have been so cool to do it right outside of my building? So that's when we started dreaming. And we were able to receive some money from the Ready Grant to do some preliminary planning on creating a playscape outside of the Terre Haute Children's Museum. What I'm proposing is that we shut down 8th Street from Wabash to Ohio, keeping the alleyway open, and the portion from 8th Street to the front part of the alley will become a playscape for the Children's Museum, very STEM-based. The alley would remain open, and then from the back of the alley to Ohio Street would become a green space that anyone in the community could use. This is a rendering of what the playscape might look like. You can see lots of climbing structures. There's some musical instruments in there. There's a canopy area where we could do some outdoor classroom type things. It's all fenced so that we have some security measures in place. We're also thinking about putting windows into the side of the museum so that you can be in the museum and look out on the playscape to watch people having fun. And then we will also keep a sidewalk open all the way through from Wabash to Ohio and a bike lane so that you can still access that from a pedestrian standpoint. So what are we doing now in the museum? Because these are huge aspirational goals. And by the way, all of that is a $7.3 million project for the entire revamp of the museum and the opening of the 8th Street Park. So right now, we have removed our under construction exhibit. It's in storage right now. We have added in an exhibit about the eclipse in 2024. If you don't know, Terre Haute will be in the line of totality on April 8th, 2024 for a total eclipse of the sun. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for those people who live in Terre Haute, Indiana, to be in totality. This hasn't happened for 819 years, and it won't happen again for another 400. So it's a really big deal, and we're working very hard to educate children and families about the eclipse. We've updated our vet clinic. We've also added a tabletop science area where you can come in and play with different things that move every 3 months or so. It's really fun to come in on Monday mornings and see what the kids built on Sunday afternoon. And then also we've put in a new exhibit called If Then, which focuses on women in science. So what's next? Next year, we're bringing in 3 different exhibits. We will open Wallace and Gromit Get Cracking in January of 2024. In June of 24, we'll open Bees, Butterflies, and Blooms. And then in August of 2024, we will bring back Under Construction. All of this is to kind of give us some lead time to finish our feasibility study that we're in the middle of right now. The READY money was used to help with this feasibility study. We have been looking at how can we do a $7.3 million project. That's a pretty big reach for us. But we are halfway through the feasibility study right now. All of the responses that we're receiving are very positive. I can't tell you right now where we're gonna end up, what that final number is gonna be, but I can tell you that we're probably gonna have a campaign. And so in 24 and 25, we'll be busy raising money so that we can start opening things up in 26. I want to invite you all to come play with us. I would really love for you to come take a tour of the museum in the next couple weeks if you have an opportunity. I'd love to share with you about more of our vision, talk to you about our education department and our outreach programs. If you haven't been to the Terre Haute Children's Museum lately, you're really missing out. It's super cool. I'm very proud of my team and all that they're doing for the families in our community. What questions do you have?
Anybody have questions?
First of all, I love that picture of Max.
Isn't
that's
he
our little
so
guy.
cute?
Yeah, look at him. That's great. If you don't
That's
know
my son.
if you don't know Max, you're missing out on Terre Haute's youngest celebrity. I have to say it was kind of interesting. I'm glad you said how old the newer. I still think of it as the newer
Yeah.
museum.
We do too.
Because my kids were older and experienced the old one. But on Facebook Memories, my son's birthday's popping up, and he will be 18 in a couple weeks. And he had one of the first birthday parties at the museum when it opened. And to look back and to think of how many memories we've made there, I get a little choked up. You know, you guys are doing an amazing thing. You have an amazing team. I am so excited about this project. We've traveled to many children's museums over the years to different cities, and you're right, the outdoor space does a lot, especially for those busybodies when they're younger. And I love the tie into the Wabash River. I think that's super, like being a part of Riverscape and seeing that, and the education community, I think that's a really neat way to make it local. So I don't know, I'm just beyond excited, so.
Any other
Pretty cool.
questions? So I got just one comment. Probably the most interesting thing I think about the Children's Museum when I've been involved in some of the projects there and working with Susan is the number one exhibit. It's Susan. She's
guys have done
if
a
they
lot.
could bottle that, they wouldn't have any trouble for funding.
You're very kind. Thank you. Do I need to make the official one?
No.
Okay.
That's it.
All right.
So this, Susan, essentially the ask for ARPA is going towards the planning.
Yes.
Of the
So
outdoor
w-
space.
So yes, the 75,000 will be used to help move forward with the outdoor play space.
Okay.
I will say that we're going to make a big announcement on Friday about some other funding that we're receiving for the museum. So
Yay. That's good.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
thank you.
Who you got up next there, Chris?
Mr. Nation with the Swope Art Museum.
Good.
Thank you, Chris. And you know I have a hard act to follow there.
Yes.
Actually, before I talk to you about the Swope, I want to tell you about our museum culture here in Terre Haute and how fortunate we are. You've heard from Susan. We have also, you're going to hear from Marla Flowers from the History Center. And along with the Candles Holocaust Museum, Troy Fears, the four of us meet every month to work together and as best we can to promote Terre Haute as a destination for tourism and how we can support each other in these various endeavors. And I must say the Children's Museum is the finest children's museum in the state of Indiana, hands-on. Now, Indianapolis Children's Museum is in a class by itself. That's a world-class, one-of-a-kind facility. But if you want to take, when you want to take kids to do something, this is it. In the same way, and I've been to a lot of these, we have the finest local history museum in the state of Indiana. We are so lucky here. Candles Holocaust Museum is the only Holocaust museum in the state of Indiana. And the Swope Art Museum is the first accredited art museum in the state of Indiana, the oldest before the Indianapolis Museum of Art, and has been operational since 1942 in a building that was built in 1901. So if you want to talk about older buildings, we got you beat. But thank you all to the County Council along with the County Commissioners for all the work in allocating the money provided to the county by ARPA, by the American Rescue Plan Act, by the federal government. It's really been a pleasure working with your team to match the ready monies that are available that was earlier allocated to many organizations, including the Swope Art Museum. There are a lot of exciting projects in the pipeline for our county, and this is the first time in a generation that funding has been made available to make many of the dreams real realities for our county across the board, and we appreciate that. The Swope has allocated $150,000 through the READY program for projects related to promoting access to our museum, to preserve and protect our priceless collection, and make the facility a better partner for our community, especially as a tourism destination, especially with what's going on with the new Terre Haute Convention Center and the Terre Haute Chamber of Commerce and the pillar of tourism here. Both the READY and ARPA allocations will be part of an expenditure of $3.5 million at the Swope to do a variety of projects. Within a month, we will have operational a new heating system which will be more efficient and dependable than our outdated and obsolete system. During the next 2 years, we will be replacing our air conditioning system, again with more efficient equipment. Both projects are being done by local contractors and union labor. It is vital that a museum maintains the temperature and humidity control for the preservation of our works and of our priceless collection, and for our accreditation. The SWOPE was first nationally accredited museum in the state, and we're up again in 2024-25, and that's why we're pursuing a lot of these projects now. Other projects include the replacement of our 1948 elevator with a modern, larger one. This one handles 4 people, if you're friendly. And also will handle persons with wheelchairs and walkers, as well as moving art between floors. We will also be constructing an indoor fire escape system to supplement the original fire escape that's hanging on the north side of our building, relocate our art storage, and we'll recreate a new gallery. Along with that, we want to continue improvements to our 3rd floor to make it more useful as a destination for receptions and meetings, to further supplement what's available with the Convention Center, the Historical Museum, and other outlets like the Ohio Building to serve the growing convention and meeting business in Terre Haute. These projects are estimated to cost $3.5 million, and we are in what hopefully are the final months of the public phase of a $6 million capital campaign. That figure of $6 million also includes $2.5 million for endowment funding. With your support, we will have right at $5 million of the $6 million committed, and our goal is to finish by May of next year, when we will have our annual dinner at the Terre Haute Convention Center. The county's allocation of $225,000 will be half of the match for our already allocation of $150,000. We will raise another $225,000 before May to match that other half. A few years ago, USA Today named the SWOPE as one of the best small city museums to view art, one of the 10 best. Other small cities, Pittsburgh, Des Moines, Louisville, St. Petersburg. So, to complete my presentation, please take a few minutes to watch this video prepared for our capital campaign.
From the moment I first entered the SWOPE several decades ago, I was inspired by the extensive collection of great American art, the stimulating exhibitions, and the engaging programs for children and adults of all ages. This magnificent building on the National Register of Historic Places is itself a work of classical architecture. 2 men are chiefly responsible: Civil War veteran Sheldon Swope, who built the Swope block and provided for the museum in his will, and John Rogers Cox, the first curator, who with his wife Hermine assembled this amazing core collection and whose later works became part of that collection. Because of them and the many board members, employees, volunteers, individuals, companies, and charities who've supported the SWOPE through the years, it became Indiana's first accredited art museum, became the keystone in Terre Haute's amazing arts and cultural community, and was named one of the top 10 places to see art in smaller cities by USA Today. Our 1901 building has seen significant improvements over the years, expanding to occupy all 3 floors. Windows have been replaced, doors rebuilt and replaced, galleries upgraded, and children better served, thanks to the legacy in part because of generous donors such as Mary Ann Carroll. Now it's time to prepare for tomorrow and address important issues facing the SWOPE. That's why in 2018, we relaunched Great Art for All, a campaign for tomorrow, a capital campaign for $6 million to preserve and protect the SWOPE's heritage. The campaign has 3 goals. First, to preserve and protect the existing collection. The major goal is to provide the type of collection storage that a world-class collection deserves, ensuring safe and accessible storage for more than 2,500 framed media, works on paper, and sculptures, replacing our obsolete heating and air conditioning system to provide proper climate controls and meet all museum standards, and upgrading the electrical system for safety and the lighting for the best presentation of the collection. The investment for these improvements is $2,550,000. Second, to enhance museum accessibility. Our small 1940s era passenger elevator makes it difficult for many persons with disabilities and difficult to impossible to safely move valuable pieces of art between floors. A new elevator will help people in wheelchairs, families with strollers, and art to move safely and securely among these floors. To meet fire safety regulations, we also need a newly enclosed fire escape, especially with more planned use on the third floor. The investment for these improvements is $950,000. Third, to ensure a successful future by growing the endowment. Sheldon Swope wanted to make great art available to all, free of charge forever. That requires additional funding. Income from the Swope Trust and other trusts and investment is our basic strength, but we must depend each year on private support by memberships, gifts, fundraising, and sponsorships to meet the annual budget. Growing our endowment will create a steady source of ongoing income to allow the board and staff to concentrate on operating a great museum that's financially stable and fiscally responsible, and one that can continue to expand the collection and exhibit it and interpret it for all audiences. The investment for growing the endowment is $2,500,000. When the goals of the campaign for tomorrow are reached, our classic building will see vibrant changes with an expanded education center for children and adults, better accessibility for all, art storage that will protect our collection, an additional gallery for sculpture, an HVAC system for better art preservation and visitor comfort, additional multi-purpose areas for Swope events, and in 4.5 years, we've raised $4.6 million of our $6 million goal, and today we're proudly moving from our quiet phase to our public phase to help raise the final $1.4 million so these dreams can become a reality. We're asking you to join us in making a commitment, one that's meaningful to you in the future of the Swope, of Terre Haute, and of the Wabash Valley. Sheldon Swope had a dream for the 20th century, a dream that was realized. Please join us in making great art for all, a campaign for tomorrow, a new reality for the 21st century.
When that was produced in May, we were at 4.6. Now, with your help, we are at $5 million. Any questions I can answer?
Just want to reiterate something, Mr. Nation, that was in the video. How much does it cost to go to the Swope?
We are free admission.
Which I think is incredible. I know that's how it was set up, I believe, and founded when they created it. But the access to that is, some of them, it's just incredible, and the resources. And I want to stress too, and since we have all of you from the museums here, just compliment on the working partnerships you mentioned. I think that's really important. I know we recently had a family exhibit that tied, obviously, with you guys into the Historical Society with my aunt's art. I think that continued, partnership is really important. So thank you for all you do. It's really
Thank you.
And great kids program too.
Thank you.
I love learning about this stuff.
Thank you for your consideration.
Thanks. I get so excited.
All right, up next, second from last, United Way of the Wabash Valley. With us tonight is Abby Desborough, Danielle Isbell, and also with them is Kristen Craig. She is the president of the board of directors of United Way.
Very good.
Thank you. Abby's going to hand out some materials that we also sent you, I believe, last week in your email as well. I am Danielle Isbell. This is Abby Desborough. We are the co-executive directors for your local United Way of the Wabash Valley. We first want to thank you for the opportunity to present our proposal tonight, and also thank you to the commissioners for their work in collaboration with our organization to pitch the best 3 grant proposals that you will hear from us tonight. We also know that the appropriation of funds like these are no easy task, so we truly appreciate your work and for allowing us to be here tonight. We are going to be discussing 3 proposals this evening centered around small business, nonprofit, and quality childcare grant programs. We will be seeking $1 million in ARPA funds for these 3 projects. There are a lot of details. I'm sure you noticed that when you got your email from me that had all of that information in it. As Todd pointed out when we walked in, I'm sure you saw all of our presentation slides. It's a long presentation, but we promised to go through it really quickly. There's just a lot of information that we want to share with you, and we will try to be as quick as possible. But if we do not touch on something in the presentation that you saw in your packet, please be sure to ask us questions at the end. I forgot to grab a little clicker here. All right. Very briefly, if you are not familiar with United Way of the Wabash Valley, we have been serving the Wabash Valley since 1958. Obviously, Abby and I haven't been around that long, but we've been we've been around for a while. We have a long history working with and for our community to create lasting solutions to our community's greatest challenges, and we know those challenges change over the history of our organization. We really focus on struggling working families and supporting those families within our community. We focus on care and collaboration. We recognize that no one organization can truly make an impact alone, that we are better together, we're better when we partner, and that we are better united. And so we partner with multiple local organizations in an open grant process. We haven't always been that way. We used to be closed membership, but we are in an open grant process now. And so any organization can apply for our funding as long as they meet the guidelines set forth in our specific programming. So what you will hear from us tonight is not foreign to us. It is what we do. It's the service that we provide day in and day out to our community. So what you will hear from us is something that we do daily. So how did we get here today? First and foremost, it's what I just talked about. It's that collaboration. Our United Way, along with local, county, and city leaders, find ourselves in multiple community conversations centered around our nonprofit community and the struggles that they are facing even pre-pandemic, but especially post-pandemic. We know that our nonprofit organizations are seeing an increased request for services, but they're also experiencing that post-pandemic crippling effect on our fundraising. Susan, you're a little bit of the anomaly. I know you're killing it in fundraising right now, but don't listen to her. She's the anomaly. Most of the nonprofits.
It's not what's happening. It's not.
But our nonprofits are struggling with fundraising, but also seeing that increased need. So the first thing to go when our fundraising is down, we don't use that for support services or our operations. We put that towards the impact in the community. So you hear a little bit about that later on in our presentation. But it's also our small businesses that are also struggling. So when it came time, I think, for the commissioners to start exploring how they would use these funds, we got in a room together and started exploring how could United Way help in a grant process that we're very familiar with, that we do day in and day out, that would help these small businesses and nonprofits. So that's what you are going to hear about. So the 3 grant programs that you are going to hear from us, small business, we are asking for $600,000 from the county and $1.5 million from the city for a total of $2.1 million. You may be saying, well, Danielle, why are you talking about the city funds? For you to really understand the full scope of the grants that we're going to offer, we are going to be combining these resources. And so we kind of wanted to show you that. We do not make that proposal until Thursday, so these amounts can change, but in order for you to understand the full scope, we wanted to share that with you. For nonprofits, it would be $200,000 from the county and $750,000 from the city for a total of $950,000 for our nonprofits. And then unique to the county, they wanted to make sure that Quality Childcare received some of this, so $200,000 would be going to that Quality Childcare initiative for a total of $1 million from ARPA funds from the county. And Abby is going to go through each one of those grant programs for you.
All right, so kind of how Danielle already mentioned, small businesses. It was something that both the commissioners and the mayor recognize in our community, and we work really closely with the chamber. You know, businesses are struggling, and you know, they're still kind of need a little jolt in the arm coming back post-pandemic. So the goals of this one was really about helping with the CU and Terre Haute plan and meeting those pillars of employee talent and retention, economic stability, and growth in our community. So the goals were retaining existing businesses and growing those businesses, and also increasing revenue and employees. So the eligible use of funds for the programs, how I'm going to go over is just kind of the overview of the programs. Then we'll go through the way that we're going to run the programs are all the same. So for the small business one, eligible use of funds are capital expenditures. So technology, things to make the business run more smoothly. We're looking at infrastructure, so that can they expand? Do they need business facade upgrades? Business planning technical assistance. Marketing. Marketing is unique because it has to be associated with another aspect. We don't just want to fund somebody's marketing budget, but if we can help expand marketing related to one of these other things. Employer attraction, so maybe signing bonuses or something of that nature. And then workforce development, really upskilling our employees to make them more valuable to us in the community. For this one, our grant awards were a max of $100,000 and a minimum of $10,000. We'll give them up to 2 years to implement their programs. One partnership that we did want to mention was, like I said, the Terre Haute Chamber of Commerce. Kristen Craig is here in support of this program. We work really closely with them. Like Danielle said, we're all in it together. We all want a better Wabash Valley. So we align really well with the CU and Terre Haute plan. So the Chamber has offered to help assist us in marketing. But then also small businesses aren't really who we deal with on a daily basis. So she has those connections. They'll utilize their marketing, their connections to get this out to them, assist the applicants with plans and ideas. Grants aren't something that small businesses typically do, so help them through the process of thinking outside of the box, hosting meetings and planning sessions. What should they be applying for? How can they make sure they check all the boxes and do everything correctly? Our second program is the nonprofit grant program. So as we said, this is really focused on capacity building. The first thing to really go for nonprofits is, just like you guys were talking earlier about tightening your belts and your budget, is internally. We try and not invest in, extra computers, not spend money on marketing, things that we don't have to spend money on because we want to put it out in the community. So this program is really about building up our nonprofits because we are seeing more need in our community. So how can we most effectively and efficiently get the help out there to those that need it? So it's about building capacity and organizational development, strengthening organization infrastructure, management, and our governance, and increasing their organizational effectiveness. So the things that we're thinking about using the eligible use of funds is organizational planning, strategic planning, thinking of fund development, technical assistance, staff development, and training for employee retention. So can we send people to conferences to help increase fundraising when they come back in the community? How can we help programmatically make sure that we're running the most effective programs here in the Wabash Valley? Things like capital expenditures, infrastructure as well, building expansions, major repairs, things of that nature. And then also a match for major grants and funding opportunities. We think that's really important because there's a lot of other outside money, so how can we best utilize our money to make it go further? For the nonprofit grant, we have a max of $50,000 and a minimum of $10,000 and an 18-month implementation timeline. And then the third program is the Quality Child Care Initiative. This is something that United Way has been working on for multiple years. We've actually done 3 rounds of this program, and through this program, we've created over 400 high-quality early childhood education seats. And the commissioners noticed this program the last time that we announced it, and we're like, we should be doing more of this in our community. We know childcare is a hot button issue. It's something that we need more. And so we were really excited when they said, let's do this again. So this is really running a program that we've already run 3 times. And so it's about expanding high quality childcare. It's also about helping people move their childcare up into high quality, and then helping those unlicensed ministries get on the path to quality. Eligible use of funds, infrastructure. Sometimes all it takes is a couple extra sinks and fire suppression systems to get a child care onto paths to quality. Capital expenditures, equipment And then also workforce development, getting the teachers accredited to help our kiddos in the community. The grant awards are a max of 50, a minimum of 10 with an 18-month implementation timeline.
So now that you've heard what the parameters are around each of those, I will also point out we didn't go through the ineligible use of funds, but those are also listed in your packet, so you can see that, but we didn't kind of go through that in the presentation. But the process for all of these grant programs are the same exact process for each one. There might be some slight tweaks based on the program, but for the most part, they're the same exact process. So we're going to quickly, I promise, go through this. So each one will go through a project qualification survey and eligibility packet. Each will go through, if approved, we'll go through a full grant application. There's a review process. We'll go through the reporting and grant administration for each one of those, and then we will very quickly touch on a timeline. So all applicants will have to go through a project qualification survey and eligibility packet. This will help ensure that a small business or a nonprofit or childcare doesn't go through a full application if they don't qualify or if their project doesn't meet the requirements. So it's in your packet, you'll see a sample of what that could look like. It's a very quick, easy questionnaire that they fill out. So that we can just make sure of that layer of approval that they actually do qualify to be able to apply for these funds. So it's very quick, very easy. We'll probably utilize something like SurveyMonkey. For the project qualification survey and eligibility packet, this will be reviewed by a grant oversight committee. This grant oversight committee is only verifying eligibility. The actual full review process, Abby will touch on in a minute, and that is a completely different committee and volunteer. But the project qualification survey will be reviewed by a grant oversight committee, and you can see what that's composed of. One appointed member from both county and city councils, the mayor, an appointed commissioner, United Way leadership, Terre Haute Chamber leadership, and a community impact committee volunteer from our team of volunteers at United Way. Again, only verifying eligibility. This committee will also help approve the pre-qualification survey, the application, and the scoring rubric so that we make sure that we're asking the right questions and meeting the right requirements set forth by ARPA.
So once an organization or a nonprofit or small business makes it through the pre-qualification survey, they'll be invited to the full application. The full application will be a simple application. We don't want to make it cumbersome on anybody to apply for funds. It'll include goal alignment, project narrative, work plan, and budgets, which we will give samples of and make sure that people are educated on how they work. We'll utilize our EC Impact grant management software, which is an online system to keep everything secure, and that's how we'll actually utilize our review teams as well. So our review process, once everything is in, we actually use community volunteers to review all of our programs. No funding decisions are ever made by our staff in our office. It's all by community volunteers. So we have what's called review teams of volunteers that get together and they'll divide out the applicants. And we'll have different teams that'll each be led by a chair, and they'll review their small group of applications. At the end of that, the review team chairs will come together and then figure out funding based on the scoring rubric and how everything shook out, and then decide who would receive funding from there. All reviewers will sign a conflict of interest form to make sure that we're being fair and equitable to all applicants. And then that final funding will be approved by our Community Impact Committee, which is our internal, sees our community investments, then also our Board of Directors, which is our fiduciary oversight. After that, we will see this all the way through to the end. We will administer the grant, so we will create individual grant agreements for everyone. We will make sure that they report, and in those reports we'll ask for pictures and stories, compile that information, and give it back to you every 6 months. So then that way you can see what these dollars are doing in our community. We'll make sure everybody's in compliance. We'll process all the claims and do all the legwork and all the administrative things related to these grants.
home stretch, I promise. And everything that you just heard from us, again, is what we do day in, day out. Our staff is used to this. Our volunteers are used to this. This is nothing new for our organization. Proposed timeline, again, this is proposed. Things have changed. We've changed this several times depending on when we thought we were coming to make the proposal to you. So a couple quick things to point out, though, on the timeline. All the project qualification surveys should be implemented by end of year this year, but funding will not actually be awarded until mid-year in 2024. So those are just some things to point out. Also, we allow a longer open time frame for the small businesses. They're not as used to applying for grant funding, so we've allowed them more time. We've also implemented a midterm review for the project qualification survey that you'll see in there. That is so that if their project doesn't meet requirements, they have time to meet with the chamber and other folks to try to help them maybe create a project or tighten up their qualification survey so that maybe they can do that since they're not used to that process as much as the nonprofits are. I hit everything on that, Abby? So in closing, why United Way? We started this at the beginning. It's all about collaboration. We have worked tirelessly with our jail solutions and the commissioners and the city of Terre Haute on making this exactly what we think it should be. We're ready. We have the systems in place. We have even administered already federal dollars, so we have HRSA grants. And so we're used to all of the reporting on the end. So all the reports that we will have to have for you all, for the federal government, we are used to that. We have done that in the past. So we're ready for this. We're knowledgeable in compliance and all that. And we are hopefully the trusted local partner in a long history of grant administration. So we will take any questions that you may have.
Oh, Aaron, you have a question first? Go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I just had a few questions about the child care piece. The other two proposals that you set forth, the city was in on those, and is there a specific reason why the mayor chose not to put forth any funds for child care?
That I do not know. I don't know the reasoning behind that.
I
just know that the
internal
commissioners were really
discussions.
passionate about it. I think we had, Chris, I don't know if you want to speak on this, but I know we had some conversations on it, but the commissioners were just really passionate about setting aside a specific amount of money for quality child care because they've been involved in a lot of those conversations.
I think the mayor added additional funds, didn't he? Because originally we were going to do $1 million apiece, and he, what's his ask? The mayor's ask. So, yeah, so he increased his initial ask from $1 million to $2.3 million. I'm not sure what he's utilizing those other funds for, though.
But nothing for child care.
That's just the county.
Okay.
Now that doesn't mean if the child care could probably maybe even apply for the small business funds, or if they're a nonprofit. A lot of your child cares aren't nonprofits, but they might be able, depending on what their project is, might meet the small business grant portion program.
Do you feel like 200,000 is sufficient for that, for the need that's out there? Because I'm looking at this, it ranges from 10,000, 50,000, so you could have 4 to 20 awards, correct?
Which is, I think, why they were so passionate about it, is because when they did, you saw that they were at our grant award for the second round, I believe, or second or third round of the quality child care. They asked, how many more applicants did you have that you weren't able to fund? And we shared those numbers with them, and I think that's one of the main reasons why they were so passionate about putting a specific amount towards that. Because we weren't able, with the funds that we had, to be able to award all of the applicants that actually applied for our second round of that.
Can you share how many didn't receive awards for the second round?
We had 4 awardees, and we had 10 applicants, at least 10 to 12. So.
So there's definitely interest in the program.
Yeah, there is, and 200,000 can go a lot in a child care. We funded everything from help to start up another child care. VIP on the south side was a brand new operation, but then we also helped expand other ones where, again, just going into the second floor of one of the child cares, with her funding, she was able to have like 40 more kids. So they can do a lot with, you'd be surprised.
anymore.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I guess a couple questions I have. So how much of this money will go direct to funding and how much of it is used in administrative? What's your percents?
You want to answer that, or you want me to answer that?
The administrative money you guys proposed, or we proposed earlier to you guys that you guys approved, will come from that pool, and this all goes to the United Way for
That's
those
what I
programs.
wanted- I just wanted to make sure I got it on record. I didn't
it's
see
fine.
it in here,
Yep.
and I just wanted, and then, how will we know the report of results? Because as you said, the oversight is just for the application process, but there's nothing here for oversight to see what the results are.
I think we've talked about that. Are you talking about the actual awardees? Like once we decide who gets the awards?
Yeah, or who
We will
got
share
them,
that
how
list with you
who
before
got
we,
them,
before we announce it.
Yeah.
Yeah, before we make the announcement, we will share that list with county and city officials.
I didn't see that in
Yep,
there.
sorry.
And I was trying to read through it
No,
while
you're
you were
good.
talking about it. So
Great question.
those are two of the questions I had on.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I just had one question. So technically, if a child care, they could qualify under both, like small business and so there's no issue if they're applying for two, as long as it's two different things and they're meeting the requirements.
As long as they're meeting the requirements, and it's different things. We also ask that question, I believe, in the pre-qualification and maybe even in the application, if they've received prior funding. So
Okay.
hopefully
So
that'll
they
be
can
listed
kinda
in there, and
spread
that will
the
be too.
Okay, thank you.
My district is right through the middle of Terre Haute. One of the biggest needs always is child care. It is critical, and there's just simply not enough money. It's one of the biggest needs in families. And if you do something else, do child care. It's just so big. Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing.
No, thank you, Vicki.
Right. I think that, no other questions. I appreciate your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Abby and Danielle, for all your hard work. You're great partners with the county. We appreciate it. Last but not least is Marla Flowers with the Vigo County History Center. A few months ago, I was attending a meeting there, and afterwards, Marla pulled me over to the side and told me about this project she had for the wall. It's the north wall that is basically fallen apart. You can actually put your finger through the mortar. If you don't know, that is also the wall that has the mural on the outside, which is, you know, an iconic piece here in Terre Haute. So, Marla Flowers.
Boy, the pressure being the last one and going as fast as I can. So, good afternoon, members of the council. Thank you for this opportunity to share some recent struggles that we've had with that east facade. Mark just said north, but it's the east side.
Directionally challenged.
He meant the north side of the east wall.
Yeah, there you go. It's the whole wall, though, let me tell you. But you can't expect me to get up here and give a presentation without a couple of history lessons. So first, let me share a little bit about the Vigo County Historical Society. We were organized in 1922, so yes, that makes us 101 years old. Early on, the society did not meet until 1957 when they bought their first building. Basically, they were collecting artifacts and keeping them stored at the Emmeline Fairbanks Library and at the Condit House. Actually, in 2018 is when we made the move or closed down the museum, the old museum on 6th and Washington, and moved into the new 929 Wabash Avenue building. It was purchased in 2012, but it took 6 years just to raise $2 million. Once that $2 million mark was hit, then renovations began. So then the doors opened to the new History Center, and then a mere 4 months later, that we had to shut the doors due to COVID. I'm sure everybody's familiar with that, and I think that's same story throughout. So lesson 2. The Ehrman Manufacturing, they made some never wear out overalls. They clearly wore out because there are none that we can find for our exhibit. But it's important to note, the reason I share that is so that you see that The Airman Manufacturing, they were established in 1988, or in 1888, but in 1895, so I win with the oldest building. In 1895, the Airman Manufacturing Building was built. It operated there until 1939, and then I've got some cool graphics in there. It was used as a wallpaper store. Then in the 1960s, it was the furniture fair. And then in 1970, Bill Glidden purchased the building, and Glidden Furniture operated there until 2013. This, I just wanted to share a fun photo. This is from the 1960s, looking west, but that's the old building there. And then I took a picture of what it looked like this summer. So that gives you a really interesting perspective. This shows when they were prepping for the mural that's on the wall. And if you look closely in some of those gray areas, you'll see the root of the problem, but that problem was not addressed. But right here, this is after the mural was painted. So in 2018, when that when they had the celebration of unveiling the mural, there was a representative from Coca-Cola that came in, and his quote, or the toast, was Terre Haute has given the world the #1 most recognized consumer package of all time. And again, for us to pay homage to the Root family history and to celebrate the birthplace of that Coca-Cola contour bottle is very important to us. That's how it looked on completion. Now the issues, here's where I'm gonna go fast with the photos. There's a lot of voids in that brick. There's some peeling paint. So what's happened is that moisture gets in behind that paint, and that paint is so thick it can't escape. So then it goes through, it comes into the interior. So we're gonna get to some interior photos as well, as Mark alluded to. There's some really horrible voids in there. And then, again, this is what it looks like today. Again, it's part of it is just natural fading from the sun, but the majority of the problem, and then you can see how the water just runs down the wall. This is from some really bad storms that we've had, but the water just runs down the wall, and it truly is a problem. We're scrambling around trying to mop up water, and it's just a crazy mess. So it's very important that wall get fixed. In hindsight, they should not have cut that out of the budget. I say I was a board member not realizing the impact, but it was cut from the budget, all of the tuck pointing, so that was the problem. But you see how serious this problem is.
Lipstick on a pig.
So now, we talk about how, let me switch pages here. I joke about, in my career, I've learned about real estate, oil production, dams, horses. Now I'm becoming a quasi-Mason expert. I've learned a lot. This building is on the National Register of Historic Places, and there's a lot of restrictions when it's on that National Register. I've been working very closely with Indiana Landmarks, the Indiana Department of Natural Resources, and the Division of Historic Preservation and Archaeology. And upon their review and approval, they then sent it on to the National Park Service. And believe it or not, finally, 2 weeks ago, I got approval to move forward. They have approved the process of this brick restoration. We're getting ready to launch a capital campaign. This project is going to cost over $300,000, but they are going to touch every single brick. They're going to cut all the mortar joints on 42,000 bricks on that wall. The capital campaign, we're going to be doing a virtual brick, and what I mean by that is once I learn there's going to be 42,000 bricks, I don't want to manage 42,000 bricks with engravings and things like that. So you're going to buy a brick for $5, and even my grandson could, he can dip into his savings bank to help grandma out. So I just want to say again, this has become such an iconic, beloved gateway to our downtown, and so many people actually stop by the Historical Society, and we say that the History Center is what we're operating in, but they come by, they see the mural, and they just want to come in and see what we have to offer. And as Fred mentioned, we do feel like we are the best in the state. Tim Crumman, we just lost him a few months ago, and he will tell you, we have the best history center in the state of Indiana. So I am going to end it with that, and I'll take any questions you may have.
Anybody have any questions? So what it looked like Marla's asking for us to cover 10,000 bricks?
10,000 bricks, yes.
Well, it's just ready to
10,000 bricks.
That-
32 to go.
Yeah. So,
I will tell you, I have reached out to the Root Family Foundation, seeking some help from them, and the Holman George family. I've sought requests with them as well. Then we still have a gap when that's what hopefully the community will step up.
and Marla, who do you have that you think is going to do the retucking of the bricks?
I'm sorry, what?
Who do you think will perform this work of the 300,000? If you have an idea for it, you surely have somebody in mind that's going to look to do it.
Yes, and again, because it's a historic building, we're using Midwest Restoration. They're out of Paris, but their specialty is historic buildings, and they've been approved by the Indiana Department of Revenue, the DNR Division of Historic Preservation. He's very well known with them and is approved by them.
When do you think it will actually start?
Well, we had a plan. We were hoping that by September, October of this year that we could start. So the process will be to water blast, and that kind of scared a lot of folks. But it will be, they will water blast the paint, the peeling paint now. They wanted to do that September, October, but because of all the delays, I couldn't, give the green light. We're gonna have to push it off to the spring. So then they'll do the peeling paint, then they'll come back and do all the tuck pointing, and then Jeff Bowes, the local muralist, he's going to be doing putting the mural back up.
So will it take the whole mural mostly down? Is that kind of what I'm gathering when you do it?
The mural is going to be decimated, yes. It's not gonna be pretty, but it's coming back.
It's
We
coming
are
back.
committed to bringing it back.
Well, and
yeah.
we've seen where, like the Clabber Girl clock, billboard and things like that, they've redone that and, saved it. My own kid has engagement pictures in front of it, so, yeah, it's a really
Yeah,
cool.
the 1978 class of the Terre Haute South class of 78, they just did they had a reunion at our place, and they did their
big
group photo right outside there, and it just, even it just looks horrible. It's horrible right now, but yes, it's definitely coming back. I'm also working with the Indiana Housing and Community Development Authority. They have a grant program available as well. They did tell me that if I could do something compelling to, that kind of fits in with their criteria, and what I'm thinking is a large, or like a 4x4 foot panel, and put a QR code that would connect to the community plan or downtown Terre Haute or things like that. So we're gonna try to make it an interactive mural when it comes back up.
Something I'll reach out to you, but I would love as a history teacher to see if our students could help with like raising funds for the bricks, or
Would love
maybe
that.
like a club, or we've got so many different service groups and between DECA and Interact and NHS. I think that'd be a really cool project. And I know my son, you've been wonderful. Actually, all of you have been wonderful taking volunteers. I can tell you students that have volunteered at every single one of your museums, and I think that doesn't, just help them now. That's going to help your future of your museums too, because they do love. I talked to a kiddo this weekend he volunteered at the Swope, and he just had pride about it. So, and I know my son loved working with you guys. So,
Any other
I'll reach out
questions
to you,
for
though.
Marla? No other questions? Marla, appreciate your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. The last thing we have here is public comment. Anybody would like to make a public comment, limited to 3 minutes? Going once? Going twice? Go ahead. You want to make a public comment? All right. If no public comment, we'll accept motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And everybody remember, we're not meeting next week. It'll be 2 weeks on the 17th at City Hall. Is there a second for the motion?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, adjourned, thank you.